Welcome everyone to Upward Trajectory. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'm happy to announce that we have with us Christine Inc. Whitmarsh. She is the CEO of the Inc. Agency, a book services agency offering coaching, author content strategy, and ghostwriting services. So thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today.
I'm so glad to be here. This is fun.
Great. Well, we had a little pre-chat prior to this podcast, and I absolutely loved talking to you. I loved your energy. I loved your story. I loved your zest for life. And I want to take the listeners and the viewers back to when you were younger and you went through this whole, it was basically a really traumatic period of your life. Can you kind of take us back to that and share a little bit of what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the trauma started, I think I was about 16 years old, and I was changing for bed, and my mom, she always seemed to have like a load of laundry. She's totally like the typical mom, always doing some kind of housework. So she's walking down the hallway with a load of laundry, and she happened to see the reflection of my back in the mirror of the bathroom. And she says, and she dropped the load of laundry, and she says, "Oh my gosh, your back is just like your father's." And we knew my father had, really super severe scoliosis. And it was just the first we'd ever seen of it. I mean, they've been checking me for years because of my dad. And it was, the gym class, like just going to have the gym teacher run the finger along your spine. I don't know that that's incredibly effective as an orthopedic screening technique, but apparently they missed it. Apparently they missed it because by the time they caught it, it was already around like somewhere around 66, 67 degrees of curvature. So the gym class screening test, not foolproof.
Wow.
So that kind of at age of 16, yeah, right? The age of 16, I was on this new kind of odyssey of being in a hospital gown with the bracelets and the tests and the people and the doctors. And I think I just spent, the remainder of my high school years basically doctors' offices, and you just become like a full-time patient while they tried to figure out what to do. And it was pretty obvious to them, to the doctors, what needed to happen. They said, you definitely need to have surgery. You're at the level where that's the only option. There's no braces or any of that other stuff. But being the stubborn 16-year-old and also like type A hyper overachiever that I was just like, no, I have too much going on in high school, and I want to graduate with my high school class, and I want to go to the first year of college, just in case. So I really want to experience college and all this. So I delayed the surgery from age 16 to 19 after my freshman year of college, by which point the combined curvature of my back had gone from the high 60s to 116 degrees of combined curves.
Oh my goodness. So just for reference, what's typical in terms of treatment? What's a good age to catch something like this at, and what's late, and what's, oh my goodness, I don't know what we're going to do?
Well, I mean, a good age to catch it would be any age that you catch it, but to give you a point of reference though, most people, when they say, oh, I have scoliosis too, they're talking about like maybe third degree curvature. When people are just like, oh yeah, I have scoliosis too, they're talking 20 or 30 degrees. By the time they even caught it with me, it was like 68. So it had progressed so it was severe. Super, super fast.
Wow.
To the point where my ribs were twisted around, my hips were uneven. By the time the surgery came around, one leg was 4 inches longer than the other. My mom had to hem all my pants, including my marching band pants, everything 4 inches longer than the other. So it was just twisted. And I mean, by the time I got to 116 degrees, it was too painful for me to stand up. Like sitting down and laying down were okay, but like standing up put a lot of pressure on the curvature. And like 10 minutes of standing up was torture. It was agonizing to me. So there was no option other than surgery. Like if I hadn't had the surgery, they said the ribs would have continued to twist. My internal organs would have been squished. I would have ended up most likely in a wheelchair, possibly dead. I mean, it was going so fast. It was like a runaway freight train. It was like, we got to do this thing. So the most dramatic part of my story is when I got the surgical odds going into it. By the time I went into the surgery, they gave even odds, like even 1/3 odds of becoming completely paralyzed, dying, or coming out okay.
Wow. And you got this news just prior to surgery?
I think, well, not like 5 minutes before, but maybe weeks before, within a reasonable period of time.
Surgery
What's really
scheduled.
Interesting, because I know, yes, you and I were talking about mindset in our conversation before, and it's really interesting. And I talked about this on my own podcast the other day of like a 19-year-old. I had a lot of plans. I mean, I had this whole like determination thing for life where I had to go back to college. I was in nursing school. There's a whole like taking control of your situation psychology of why I briefly went to nursing school. And, but I had I had a things to do list, just like I've I'm kind of like this now as an entrepreneur, but I was very busy. So it was very strange at the age of 19 and just being that headstrong person. They gave me those odds and I only heard, okay. I didn't hear, like, I just was like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, just very, very, and it wasn't like flippant or not understanding or whatever. It was just very much, I had this total belief that the third thing would happen, even though there was only a third of a chance that I was going to be okay. That's the only one that I physically heard come into my ears. And what's really interesting is the day of the surgery, all three of those things happened. First, they straightened my spine too much. They tried, they were being very ambitious, which I really appreciate for, that they tried to straighten it even more and make me even taller. But they straightened it. Yeah, I appreciate the effort, but they straightened it too much and they actually paralyzed me on one side. So then they had to put me back under and unparalyze me, and they did that. But by then I was only 110 pounds. So by then it was like, it ended up being a 15-hour surgery. I only weighed 110 pounds. I had enough anesthesia to kill a football player. So by then I went into respiratory arrest and then cardiac arrest, and I died on the operating table. So it's interesting that the things that they said that could happen, be paralyzed, die, and be okay, that's exactly the order that ultimately they happened in.
Wow, what an advantageous order.
Yeah, I'm really glad it worked out in that order.
Yeah, but I love that your perspective on mindset was, maybe you didn't realize it back then, but at that age, at that young age, to have that, well, those other two are not even an option. I am going to be okay, and I've got to get on with my life. That is just such a profound perspective to have at the age of 19, to be able to do that. And there's no doubt that that was beneficial for you. That's just such an amazing story. So take us back. So you got out of surgery, you survived surgery, you were not paralyzed. What happened then?
Well, then I was in the ICU because at that point, obviously my body had gone through a lot of trauma. So it wasn't just like go back to the hospital room and carry on with your life. I was in the ICU, surviving for the next few days, just because of my lungs had filled with fluid. I mean, the turning around the entire rib cage and organ. I mean, there's just a lot of trauma to my body. So for several years, I mean, it's interesting, ICU, like my poor mom, I was just going to say, add a quick thing to the mindset. It's really interesting how my family kind of followed my lead emotionally. Like, if I had been freaking out, maybe they would have been freaking out, but I'm sure parents were freaking. I mean, they're parents, they're probably freaking out, but it's really interesting. Like, on the surface, I said, I'll be fine. So everybody kind of emotionally followed my lead and said, yeah, you'll be fine. And that really, just a little addendum to that. But my mom, when she went into the ICU, to claim me, she said at first she walked right by my bed because she didn't recognize me because I'd been, like back up, face down on the operating table, that I was just so puffy from fluids that I looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy, she said, and she didn't even recognize. She like by the bed and completely missed her own daughter because I was unrecognizable.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
So how long was the recovery process after your surgery?
So I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, which is really interesting because now with spinal fusion, I see, I'm obviously, following the scoliosis community on Instagram, and these young girls are incredibly blessed. They're out sometimes the next day or the same day, or whatever.
Wow.
I was in the hospital 3 weeks. It was just a very traumatic time. And then I think it was 6 to 9 months where I wasn't even allowed to like sit up on my own. I had to like roll into a brace, which I called my turtle shell. And I had to like roll it with help from my mom. My mom is like Superwoman, by the way, in case you didn't ascertain that. She's Superwoman. So she just I was at home and she rolled me into my brace and, just totally took care of me all that time. But I mean, the surgery was in June of 1992. And that was really the rest of my year, was recovering physical therapy. I mean, I stayed, didn't go back to college that fall, didn't go back to college until January of 93. So it was just kind of taking it easy and, rehabilitating and learning how to like function again. So, June 1992, pretty much through the end of the year. That was my 1992.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so was it a long road back to where you are now? How are you still dealing with any of this, the repercussions of the surgery or the disease?
That was 28 years ago. So, no, I'm actually in the best shape of my life now. And that's the, other stories that we talked about, how I, discovered this thing called physical fitness. And that's something that's very important with scoliosis, whether you have the hardware in your back or you don't. But they told me that right after the surgery. He said, just staying fit and having core strength and being strong, that is what's going to keep you functional. That's what's going to keep any complications and pain and all that. And I didn't really get that for a while. I was, very because I was just naturally thin. So exercise wasn't anything that I understood. So I only started, really understanding the importance and, how strong I can actually be probably in the last like 5 years or so. But, no complications really, just every once, I would say like over the years when I had like back episodes, it probably was from being out of shape. And I realized that now, like these kind of back episodes where my back would seize up and I'd just have to like lay on the couch. I realized first of all, laying on the couch probably was making it worse. Didn't realize that at the time. And just, it was not keeping all of those muscles strong and conditioned and flexible around the spine that was causing those. So ever since I've solved that problem, I've been, pretty much good.
Well, and then when we spoke earlier, you shared with me what you're doing now with your aerial acrobatics, and I was just floored. So can you kind of go into a little of that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's scoliosis patient, my fellow Scully warriors, they're floored too. They can't, I mean, you wouldn't believe the comments that I get because I tag all of my circus, my aerial yoga and Lyra, which is the hoop that's the, that you see in the movie, The Greatest Showman and all that. I tag them all, hashtag flying ghost rider. Get it? Because flying ghost riders. Hashtag flying ghost rider. So the scoliosis, my fellow scoliosis patients and survivors, they all kind of follow me and comment, and it just, you wouldn't believe all the ones saying, you do that with a Harrington rod? Because that's what the name of the titanium rod is in my back, a Harrington rod. And they know what it is. And they're just like, I can't believe you're doing this with a Harrington rod. And so how do I do the long story short on the circus thing? So a few years ago, I was not paying attention to the fitness part of the recommendation. And I was I was at my heaviest, I was at my most out of shape, like just, walking on the beach once in a while and saying, look, I exercise. No, that's not really exercise. It's walking on the beach. Nice step count on the phone, but not really exercise, especially for my purposes where I need to have very, very strong muscles. So I was just at the end of my rope. And I think, a lot of women particularly, but a lot of us can recognize this part where it's like going to the gym wasn't working, the home video, just like, why can't I consistently exercise in my life? I mean, this is a very much, many Americans have this thing where it's like, I don't know why it's not taking. Like I'm just like walking into the gym. I mean, like the opposite of an empowered mindset was me walking into the gym and saying, why am I even bothering? I know I'm going to quit 4 to 6 months from now because that's always been my pattern. So just really, I had a very positive mindset regarding my career and so many other things, but kind of like the last of my mindset walls to fall was regarding my physical fitness. So just, I was at the end of my rope and found a, kind of a business friend, and, she was telling me about this circus school. I was like, circus school? Okay, like clown coach? Like, what do you mean circus? And she showed me all these pictures and she was doing, trapeze and all this stuff. And I said, all right, well, I'll give it a shot because fun is one of my core values. So I figured, hey, it might be fun. It'll probably be embarrassing, but it'll definitely be fun. So I went to their try it free class, and yeah, it took 3 teachers to like hoist me up onto the trapeze just for the photo op. I was just like, there was no muscle. I mean, just like jello, just because I had exercised the longest time because I had a very defeatist attitude towards my ability to sustain physical fitness on a long-term basis. But I went into this place and it's like something clicked in my head and I just went, this is fun. And I realized in that moment why I hadn't been able to sustain long-term fitness. Oh, I wasn't having fun at the gym. I wasn't having fun doing those home workouts. I mean, it was fun for a little while, but then you do the same thing and the same thing. And I'm not a do the same thing kind of person historically. So I just went, I will never be bored. Because first of all, there's all these things. There's these silks and there's that hoop thing. I don't know what that is. And then there's a trapeze and I will never be bored. And there will always be something to do. And you exercise your butt off, but it's to do really pretty fun, cool things. But yeah, it's the same. I mean, if you do like a regular workout at the gym and you're out of breath and you're panting and your muscles are on fire, we all know that feeling, right? Well, yeah, we have that too at circus. But we're like laughing at the same time. And usually it's more painful because we're like, rolling our body parts over steel bars, which I think is incredibly fun. Many people don't. But so we're doing pretty things, but we're still having the same feeling. I just want to express this like to, but people go to the gym and like, yeah, we're smiling and we're having a blast and we're having fun, but all the experiences that everybody else has at the gym, all those physical, we're having that too, like worse, because we're using, for every move you do in circus, you use every muscle in your body from head to toe, all in one motion. So there's no leg day, arm day, core day, back day, chest day. Everything you do is all those days in one motion.
Wow. So it's very, your whole body gets worked out every time you practice.
Yes.
Now, can you take,
this afternoon?
I meant to ask you just a little bit earlier, but you mentioned the Harrington rod. As I understand that, is that a rod fused to your spine that's currently in your body right now?
Yes. And
okay,
it will
and
hopefully always be there.
if
you look at the x-ray, it just looks like, yeah, it's one giant rod, because now they have the spinal fusion. So they have like what look like little railroad tracks, and they have all this better technology. I have like the old tech. So it's like one giant rod, and it looks like it's held onto my spine with like giant metal twist ties, like hefty twist ties.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
wow.
But it still stays in the same place. I get it x-rayed once in a while, especially, when I had like my freakouts about like, oh no, I have back pain. Does that mean the rod's out of place? But every time they check the x-ray, they look at it and they're just like, the curvature is exactly the same and nothing has moved, not even a millimeter, even after all the surface.
Wow.
Well, it's because all the muscles. I have all these back muscles now that hold it into place.
So you're able to do these routines on the hoop, and I forget the term for the hoop. You mentioned it to me.
The Lyra, yeah.
The Lyra, yes. So you were telling me the story of what you recently were able to do and perform. Can you share that?
Yes, this was me, again, the hyperachieving perfectionist, type A overachiever, even just after that disastrous first class at circus, like walking in and not even being able to lift myself off the floor, basically, just having no muscle strength. But I had this thing where I walked in and I said, my goal is to perform a routine, a showcase routine in front of an audience, the song Titanium, because I have a titanium rod in my back. And I can't imagine, my awesome teachers, they're amazing. I'm sure many of them are probably going to be watching this video. You guys are amazing that you didn't laugh at me, because I mean, the bowl of Jello on the floor, and I said, I'm going to do a routine. And that was the fall of 2017. And I put that stake in the ground and said, this will happen. I didn't know which apparatus it was going to be on. I had no idea. So flash forward to December of this last year, December 2019, I performed a routine to the song Titanium.
Wow. And I don't know if you have a link to that video, but I would love to share that for the viewers, because I get goosebumps just hearing where you were and where you've come, and how all these other people that are going through scoliosis are just floored without this rod in their back. They have these much smaller corrections that they've been able to have. And just that how far you've come and your perspective, that is really, to me, what is mind-blowing, is that you kept this perspective. Now, you did mention you got a little sidetracked because the fun was missing, but you got right back on the train, and you figured out that you needed to have the aspect of fun in there to keep and maintain that perspective on things that were challenging. But beyond the fun, I'm just curious what drives you, because your energy is contagious. I just feel it coming through, and the enthusiasm and the excitement. And I just love to understand what at your core drives you.
I somehow was born this way. I don't know. I'm sorry that there's just no answer to that, because when you meet, how I keep kind of just tongue in cheek call myself, perfectionist, type A, all these kind of, cliche terms. What makes us this way? I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have personal stories of, overcoming, hardship as a child, and, incredibly, horrifying family environments and things like that. And I was blessed to have an amazing family and a wonderful life. And other than, of course, the massive trauma of, facing your own mortality at the age of 19, but I was like this before that though. That's what's really interesting. So I think whatever drive I had drove me through the situation. And and I just want to address something you said before about people that have like smaller curvatures or whatever. Like, I have such amazing, I should say this, just respect for everybody who has scoliosis. So it doesn't matter what the curvatures are, whatever, because I'm incredibly blessed, because most people with scoliosis, whether they've had the surgery or not, are living with a significant, sometimes just an incapacitating level of pain and lack of, movement every day. So I they're dealing with some serious things. So I hope when they, see when I do the, circus or whatever, that it's inspiring to them. And there's a great message in there about, exercise and flexibility, but, their unique situations are, different than mine. So I could never speak to just go exercise and you'll be fine. So I just have, and just kind of shout out to all the Scully warriors out there, just for the amount of, strength they have to endure those things. So I don't know if that kind of circles around and answers your question too, where, I think we're all enduring things, especially this year of all years. We're all enduring a certain amount of challenges in our life day after day. So this just happened to be my challenge. And I found a way, like within myself, to endure like what I call the curves of my life, like my memoir, The Power Curve. That's to, you know, to just find the way to be able to find strength in those curves. And we all have curves in our life that we have to find strength in, and we all do it in different ways. And sometimes I don't know that we always have a clear answer of how did you make it through this life curve, because we all are dealing with life curves, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on a yearly basis. I mean, we're all dealing with curves, and I don't know that we always have a clear answer on how did you get through. I don't know. There's just, you hear people say, I just dug within myself and I had no other choice. I found a way through. And
Yeah, well, your
that's really
story,
the whole point of my memoir. Yeah.
your story is so inspiring, and to have it had been that bad. And, you know, those three things literally did happen, but just so happened to be in the right order that you are here today and you survived, and not only survived, but you're thriving. And I'm so happy for you. And I know that your story is just going to be so inspirational for whoever hears it, because it really was inspiring for me. I love hearing stories like yours. And I'm just curious, what do you hope to leave as your legacy?
I mean, I have my professional legacy where, you know, I wake up in the morning with the goal of inspiring others to share their stories. That's the entire point of me being a ghostwriter and a book coach and an author. That's my entire existence, is to inspire other people to share their stories. Because look, I shared my story today and it's had this impact on you. Hopefully it'll have an impact on everybody watching this. Everybody has curves. Everybody has strength that they've had to find in those curves. Even if you don't think you have, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as my story. I have clients that have amazing life stories too. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. This is why, you know, biographies and memoirs are consistently some of the top selling types of books every year, year after year. I look at the publishing stats because people love hearing about regular people's life stories and the stuff they endured. And they go, oh, okay. And they have different reactions. Like, I feel like I can face my life better now, or, hey, that person, that's kind of similar to what I did. And that's really interesting how they handled that. I think I might try that. And we get, I mean, the story goes back to the very beginning of human evolution. This is how human beings learn and grow and evolve and, you know, share things, share lessons and wisdom from generation to generation. It's through stories. So that's why I'm the person that says you gotta put it in a book, because that's the enduring legacy. That's the enduring legacy. Facebook might go away. We don't know. Everybody's putting their stories on Facebook. That's nice, but you don't own Facebook. No, just a thought.
Yes. And I love put it in a book. So anybody out there saying, yes, I want to put it in a book, how is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way, and this will answer your question earlier about how also to see my titanium circus routine from last year. Everything is through my website, Christine-Ink.com. And at the top right-hand corner, you'll see all my little social media icons. If you click on the YouTube one, it'll go to my YouTube channel and you can see the titanium video. So Christine-Ink.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for being on the show. I love hearing your story. I could listen to you talk all day. It's just so the energy coming through and the enthusiasm that comes with it is just infectious. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you soon on the next podcast of Upward Trajectory. Thanks so much and have a great day.